today's video we're building a mage, and yes, believe it or not, we can build a mage in this game, and yes, it is as strong as it usually is in these types of games that have this type of gameplay. As you can see right in here, the goal of the mage, it's always being away from the enemy. You never want to be up close with the enemy. All of our self-sustainable skills and stuff that we're going to be using is that it's to ensure that we spend as less limbic energy as possible and that we get it back so that we can continue with the fray, and then we also have some more little things to regain it back so that we never had to be like on the face of the enemy. But remember that if need be, you can just be on the face of the enemy just to regain your limbic energy back. It's not going to happen often. More often than not, you are going to be fighting from a distance. You do not want to be on the face of the enemy, so you have distance. Also, for those many situations that there's many situations in this game where you have lots of enemies in front of you and you need AoE, we are going to have AoE. There's a couple of things that you might want to tweak in here with this build, but in general, what you're going to be doing is that you're going to be dealing damage from a distance, range attack, while you have self-sustainability for your limbic restoration, and so on and so forth. So for the weapon, we're using Rage. You don't really have to use the same weapon type that I'm using. You can use whichever weapon type that you want to be using. At the end of the day, the gameplay bases around here just with the usage of your limbic spells or your glyphs. So yeah, the weapon type does not matter that much, just so long as you have a rage weapon. There's a couple of interesting choices that you might have as well with different weapon types, but for this particular build we want to have range, and this is the one that gets closer to that objective. Now the glyphs that we're using, there's a neutral one. We're using the Lymbic slivers. This is one of the ones that deals the most damage out of all of the spells that we have right in here, but it's also very expensive when it comes to the limbic cost energy. So you can see we have the Rage Spike, which is also very powerful, and then finally the most powerful that you're going to have is going to be the Wave of Wrath Enhanced. I do have the enhanced version. There's a much better one than this one, but yeah, so this is the spell that you would want to be using on the beefiest of enemies, because the cost only happens once. It is going to be 227 limbic energy, so that's quite a lot. However, the interesting thing about this little bad boy right in here is that each projectile is going to give you 1200 damage. If you sum that up, that's going to be 3600 damage. There's not many enemies in this game that are going to be able to survive that, and because of how we have things set up, it's going to give you your limbic energy back. Now for the smaller enemies and you do not want to be using that much of a limbic energy, then that's when you could be using the Rage Spike. This is just one cast, and you could also, like, you do have to have in mind that if the enemy moves with the limbic slivers, then you're going to, there's a chance that you can whiff some of these attacks, and it is going to be more expensive than the Rage Spike. So the Rage Spike, by all means, it's much more dependable. This just 2400 damage by itself. It's amazing damage, and it also has an explosion radius, and that explosion radius is AoE damage that is going to be dealing damage to the rest of the enemies that you have in front of you. So this is by far my favorite, but when you want to like focus on one single high health pool enemy and that you know that it's not going to be moving, then this is the go-to. Finally, this is our panic attack. This is our panic button. Whenever the enemy gets close to us too much, we're going to be using this bad boy right in here. I'm not entirely sure how many of the waves actually deal the damage, but I can tell you that this thing kills and one-shot basically every enemy that I have in front of me. So while it says that it's 640 damage, that's not really that much accurate with the overall damage that it deals. It deals so much damage. It's just that the range that it's going to shoot in front of you, it's not going to be as high and as dependable as these other two that we have right in here. So this is just when the enemies, when you have AoE, lots of enemies in front of you, and when you have like a panic, this is like a panic button when the enemy is getting too close to you. Now this is where it also gets interesting with the items, the itemization that we're using. The active relic is the one that I want to talk about first, because there's one that I should like to be using in every single one of my builds, but it does not work for this one, because with this particular build, we do not want to be in front with the enemy, we want to be away from the enemy, and we want to be using range attacks as the mage that we are, meaning that more often than not we're not going to be receiving damage. But we do want to have sustainability when it comes to our Limbic resource. This is going to give us such a thing that's going to be replenishable every 6 minutes. More often than not, we shouldn't be wasting her Limbic resource all the way the entirety of the bar. But whenever that happens, this is the first thing, the first filter that we're going to be using. The second filter, when we need to regenerate our Limbic energy, which is not going to happen too often, is going to be the capacitors. Now the capacitors, you can purchase them at blacksmith, and if you have been upgrading like the weapons that you need, you're going to be sitting in a whole bunch of materials. As a matter of fact, let me show you. I've been upgrading like a huge amount of weapons for my different builds, and even then, if I go to craft my stuff right in here, let's go to the with Lymbic consumables, you will see that I have 467 shards on my inventory, and this allows me to purchase the capacitors, meaning that I can just purchase a whole bunch of them and just not care about it. And this is something that's farmable because the enemies drop these items. That being said, it doesn't really need to come to that if you don't pass the first filters, like, well, it's actually 3 filters, pardon you me. The first one is going to be coming from the Bloodseeker. So every time that you kill an enemy, this is going to happen more often than not, is going to restore your health, and it's also going to restore your limbic energy. That's why I advise that more often than not, you should by all means be using this. It's kind of like a 1 and 2 scenario. You know, it's 188 cost, you're going to regain 100 back, so this means that you're going to be recovering your limbic energy from to 100% every other enemy. So every other enemy, that's when you're really going to be spending your limbic points. But this is not necessarily true because of one other, this is very important part of the build, and that is the Pendant of Terror, the Limbic attunement. This is going to reduce the cost of your limbic skills by 35%, almost half of it. And if we're using the 188, that means that we can just be spamming, if we wanted to, this one right here and this one right here, and we're never going to be running out of limbic energy just with this one, because this one costs a little bit more. But then again, we already spoke about this, and when should you be using this? But if you're using just these two right in here as a range damage, and you should never be spending the entirety of your limbic energy, if you one-shotting things as well, because you do need to kill things for you to have the limbic restoration. That is the first filter. The second filter, remember, if you actually do run out of your limbic energy, then use this bad boy right in here. And then if you run out of that, even when that happens, which it really shouldn't, like it really shouldn't, but you have your capacitors. And finally, we have the Color of Grief. I do not think this is as important as the rest of the things that we have right in here. Yes, it is going to heal you from the limbic energies usage, the limbic energy spent by 400%, which is not too shabby. But remember that we do not want to receive damage, because if we receive damage, then that means that we're not going to have the limbic cost reduction right in here. However, if we actually do receive damage and we heal it back with this right in here by staying away from the enemy, that means that this is always going to be active. So this is like safe, like a safety insurance, if you would like to call it like that. The reason why we're not using the Heart of the Griffin right in here, it's very simple. The Heart of the Griffin should be giving you your limbic restoration back to its entirety 100%, but that can only be done when you have been receiving damage, because you do need to have damage to your endurance to be able to use the Heart of the Griffin. So let me show you real fast right in here what do I mean by this. and a way to actually bypass that to some extent, but I wouldn't really recommend it because this is the spells that I like to use for this particular build. So you will notice that my endurance is already full, meaning that I cannot use the Heart of the Griffin. If I were to, for example, be using a different type of weapon for a different type of build, this one, for example, that causes for me to receive damage, and you will see that I barely used any of my Lymbic skill points. Now that's much more. I can be spamming this and spamming this and spamming this as much as I want to, and then I use this, and then I can continue spamming and spamming and spamming. But then again, this is not a particular weapon that I like for this build, so by all means you can just go to someone else and receive some cheap damage. I do not know if you do want to be using the Heart of the Griffin, but if we're just going to be using it for that, then might as well use the one that we already have. And that is basically the gist of the build. You attack from a distance, you attack from safety, and always you're going to be safe from the enemy. If you like the content, so like and super appreciate it. No, still today, you're going to use a person. You are indeed a gorgeous and beautiful person. Subscribe to the channel, join Discord. Have a beautiful day. Goodbye.